Then I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is the Tuesday, December 2nd, 2025 meeting of the Commission on the City Plan. It's a hybrid special meeting. And we'll do a roll call at this point. Do we have anybody online here, Jason? Dan.
Ella's online.
Jason. Ella's online.
Yes.
Okay, so we have Frank, we have Ella,
And Dennis is online.
Dean,
Dennis.
Dennis.
Dennis been sworn.
Dennis, have you been sworn in yet?
Hey, Dennis, this is Frank Manfredi. Have you been sworn in?
I have.
You have? Okay, good. All right. And we've got Ella. Can you hear us?
Yep, I can hear you.
All right. Welcome.
And Regan.
Anybody? So we got Dennis, Ella, Dean, and myself. Jason is here, but he hasn't been sworn in, so he can't be seated. Not that we're going to take any votes, but we may as well seat Dennis tonight since we don't have a quorum. Well, we do have a quorum, but we don't have all of our regulars.
Regan was gonna come on too. She's not, I don't know why she said she was gonna log in.
She was driving from Daniels.
Oh, did she send a
Might
message?
be a minute.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
We're good at either way.
Yep.
There you go.
There's Regan. You can ask her the question if she's on, right?
Hey, Regan, can you hear me? It's Frank.
Hi guys, I'm here. I'm driving.
Okay. Have you been sworn in?
Or-
Regan? Can you hear me?
Yep, I hear you guys just fine.
Okay. Have you been sworn in, Regan?
I have not had a chance yet, no.
Okay, so yeah, welcome your participation, but you're not an official member yet, so
No worries.
but glad you're here.
Thank you. I'll make sure to get sworn in this week with Roseanne.
Okay, perfect.
Rich on here now?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Yeah, okay. So we have a quorum and Dennis will be seated as a member and we're here tonight to discuss the new zoning regulations that are going to be proposed.
Yeah.
And would you take it from there?
Sure. So I just want to give some background first for the new members and to let you know what happens is the CCP is not the zoning authority of the city. The zoning authority is the city council, which is a unique situation if you're not familiar with that we are a special act community. And so zoning in the Connecticut general statute specifically mentions Norwich as kind of an exemption to that. So there's only a few other communities in the state. There's West Hartford, New Haven,
Hartford, a couple of.
yeah, but very few that have their elected officials as their, their legislative body as that, but Norwich is one. So what will happen is, just kind of giving you a little background here is the zoning regulations, when Dan and I finish them, feeling that they're in good shape, our goal is to have them submitted into the clerks, officially received on Monday, December 8th. And then what happens is the council will receive them and then they set a public hearing date and they refer them to you. We anticipate that they'll be here at your January meeting, right? That's when we're going to do January meeting. They'll have their meeting on the 20th of January. And because of the way the holidays are and stuff, it works out that we'll do that. So our January meeting, we'll be looking for a referral, response to their referral to you. And usually you can make comments back and forth, but normally it's kind of a favorable or unfavorable. And you can point out specific things. These are not ready yet to give you the draft because we're not finished yet. We're still doing like the 29 last little comments that we have.
303 this morning. I have 27 now.
Yeah, so we're finishing the little comments that we have. And our attorney, land use attorney is Mark Brantz. He he read all the regulations and had comments, and then we had a 8-hour meeting with him to go over every single comment, because some things he maybe misinterpreted what we were trying to say, some things he needed to beef up, some things basically remove. So he really did a thorough review from a legal standpoint to make sure.
So you're going to be available to review them with the city council? When they
Yes, he will be at the public hearing that night. So we feel really good about what's in here. And just to also say that the regulations come out usually after you do your plan of conservation and development, which is the 10-year required plan, visionary plan for the city. That plan was adopted by the Commission on the City Plan because they're the planning authority in 2023. And usually within a couple of years, you adopt the zoning regulations to incorporate those visionary ideas. So to try to move forward the city with zoning regulations to make those things happen. So that's what we're at now. So 2023, our POCD was adopted. It is being challenged in court. It's still in the court system, but it doesn't mean that it's not effective. It's still just someone's challenging it. And then we're going to move forward with these regulations. Dan has really been the lead on this. Dan Daniska, as the city planner, has done a majority of the work. We have worked with a consultant, which is SLR. We have a very small budget with them of $30,000, which is nothing to do with zoning regulations. I think even in 2015, it was 50,000. So we went, which was nothing at that time, and it's
even was Planometrics, right?
Yes, it was with Planometrics. So now we were working with SLR, and they're really just doing for us the reformatting. They gave us some ideas for regulations, but pretty much we've been feeding them, and they just formatting it for us and setting up the document because they're pretty complicated to try to organize. So that's kind of an overview of what we're doing and your timetable. So,
they'll be submitted to the clerk next Monday, and then they'll be out for public review. So if you have the time, if you can read through them, we can discuss them again at CCP meeting in a couple weeks if you want.
We can put it on the agenda.
A couple of opportunities to discuss it before.
Yeah, we should probably put it on the agenda just so we can discuss it if we want to.
So what we're going to do tonight. So last time we talked about this, last month, I think.
I ran through a short presentation for you all. That was probably 10 slides, not even, just talking about the general overview. So this is like a mid-level overview. Our goal is to be done by 6:30 tonight.
So we want to touch on the sections that
some highlights, really.
Yeah, that we think that this changes in that you're be happy with, or we feel that we're pleased with doing. So I'm going to pretty much turn it over to Dan, and I'll kind of jump in. And then, like I said, as we have questions, please jump in too. This is a discussion.
So a big change starting off with residential districts is we added back in R15 and R10 zones because we have a lot of lots in the city that are much smaller than an R20 lot. So we're really making it easier for residents who live on all of those are existing non-conforming now. So with the new regs, it'll be easier if you want to do an addition or anything in your yard that doesn't meet current requirements. So there's big areas of the older sections of the city.
Do you have the map shown with the R15 and R10?
I don't have it. I'll have it in a couple weeks. But it's if you think about the city, it's kind of near NFA or where there's neighborhoods where the house lots are way smaller.
Great Hotel.
Yeah, if it's not a multifamily zone already, it's an R10 or 15, some West Side neighborhoods, that type of thing.
Yeah.
We used to have stories and we changed it to building height. We did change some.
What was that? Is someone else trying to learn? Nope, there it is.
Nope. We did change some setbacks and lot coverage here. And I think I'll jump ahead to commercial districts.
3.2J on that. So residential, any questions? That's really the majority, is we just kind of added some districts back in that used to be here. Yep.
What kind of percentage would that be of the city, do you think? Is it 5, 10, 20?
Probably,
Just rough.
Yeah. Let's split the difference, 15% maybe. Yeah, okay, yeah. For commercial district, yeah.
Let me interrupt, just totally up to Jason. Dean Nason is our vice chairman. Jason.
It's me too. Good to have you.
We didn't change anything for commercial districts except planned commercial is now renamed regional commercial, and those are the zones that are near highway exits, so kind of by Walmart or the Norwich Town Mall or by exit 14 off of 395.
And the reason we changed the name of it, because they really are regional draws, but it's also because we have planned commercial and planned development district, and there were two close names and they were too confusing. So it's regional commercial, and the IPMR was just PMR, so it's really the only industrial zone. So we just put the industrial, it's production, manufacturing, and research, but we just put the I back in front of it.
There's distinction between the two.
Between the
Regional commercial
Yeah.
and
PDD?
planned development.
yes,
Yeah.
different uses are
Yeah.
allowed.
So right now, if everything gets adopted, PDD, we'll go over this in a minute.
Okay.
PDD was in a few spots in the city, and now it's mainly in the Occam Industrial Center and where the Norwich State Hospital property is. But we'll get to that. That's going to change as well. So I think really for commercial districts, there's nothing else that we need to touch on at this point.
Some of the heights of the buildings, we did
Yeah,
allow.
we did bump up some height allowances in general commercial.
In Chelsea,
And nope, that's the same.
Oh,
That
was.
was the
it
max
was stories before,
Yeah.
yeah.
What's the concern with the heights of the building?
It was more of to allow for mixed use buildings, some taller residential, if you're, that. Because if they're putting sprinklers in, the fire departments are
So
okay
they
with
can-
the heights, so we worked with them and got some input back on
Yeah.
that. So we're okay with those heights.
Yeah.
And the story thing was always an issue because people like, well, is a story.
So I don't know when we got disconnected or what anybody heard or did not hear. We just touched on residential districts. We added R10 and R15 to reflect some older neighborhoods in the city. And then we just briefly touched on commercial districts. Regional commercial is new as the previously planned commercial. And then we're just about to get to some new zones that we added here. So one of the big changes is we added a government facilities district, which is all city-owned land, state-owned land, federal government-owned land. So previously, Three Rivers and Uncas on the Thames was planned development district. But now all big things like, or the golf course or Mohegan Park, it's all government facilities now. And that's probably the biggest change you'll see on the map is there's huge areas of government facility zones.
And it'll be easier for us to know what the city owns, and what we'll do is we will rezone like once a year through the council, the properties, if we acquire more land or we do something
sell
different. Yes, we can
Yeah.
take it off or something. So probably once a year, it's every couple of years, we will update the zoning map to take them on or off, okay?
But that does not include when the city takes a house lot
No.
or tax foreclosure or
Okay.
anything. Something that we're gonna move
Move
and
it, we're gonna-
sell, they're not on there.
Yeah,
But this is like MPU facilities, reservoirs,
Schools and
schools,
Yes.
parks,
yeah,
this building,
Yeah.
that type of stuff.
Sewer facility.
yes.
Yeah.
We just want to be able to visually see them faster and to be able to calculate how much the city owns, and it's easier to do that if we know what facilities are municipal facilities.
Yep.
government ones. On the state too, we can see quickly what the state owns in the city.
Yes. And then for overlay districts, the CAM is the same, floodplain is the same.
Floodplain, we didn't really update it at all. We sent it to be reviewed and they came back with a lot of changes that are not required by statute, but what DEP would love us to add. But they were making it even harder on development and even harder on us to facilitate it. And we already jumped through hoops as far as being in the community rating system. We do extra more than other communities do. So we're like, no, we're not incorporating that. So we'll see what they say when we send them. We have to do referrals.
Hopefully city council will agree.
Well, we have to send it to the state again.
To review it.
Yeah, we sent it as a pre-application just for them to look at it. We'll send it to them again and they'll probably have the same comments back. It'll be nice to add
The
it.
floodplain issues.
Yeah.
Because they don't get to pass on all of us.
They just literally caring about that. Yeah. Yeah, just like the CAM, we have to send to DEP for the coastal area, what Dan just went over. There's a few little changes in there that the state just changed. So they just really are looking for those.
Yeah. Slightly renamed is this greenway overlay, which is trying to establish greenways and blueways along the river corridors. It was never included on the previous zoning map, so it didn't really exist. We're going to add it to the new zoning map, so you'll see bubbles that run along the Shetucket and Thames and the Yantic.
And it's really about getting access. If there's something that falls in there and we have an application, we can ask for public access and things like that.
Or extend the heritage trail.
Yeah.
The greenway and the blueway the same thing, or are there distinctions?
The blueway is on water, so
On
it'd be
water,
kayaking or canoeing or boating.
Yeah.
But you'd have like portages and whatnot, that kind of interact between the two. A new overlay is the medical mixed use district, which is in the area around Bacchus Hospital. So we're going to allow some development density bonuses, for lack of a better word, along Lafayette Street. Yeah, and the idea is to get, you could have housing above medical offices or related facilities. So as people age, they could live closer to facilities they needed to
In their doctor's offices.
Yeah.
They really need room to expand because that campus is.
Well, they own a bunch of the buildings over there, so it makes sense to make it. And then we have the opportunity to allow them to do some housing there too.
Yeah,
Okay.
and shared parking and improve walkability of that area. And then the mill reuse is the same.
Village district hasn't changed,
It's
it's
the
the same.
So another big change is we have a consolidated use table, which lists, can be tough to shrink, but it lists everything on one large table now by principal uses. And then we also have an accessory use table, and it shows every zone and the way it is permitted in the zone. So SP is a special permit, SDP is a site plan approval. Those are two commission related things. Z is a zoning permit that deals with CEO.
And ABR is allowed by right, I think.
Yep.
Yep.
So ABR is allowed by right.
That means nothing from us, but so it's easy for people to know I don't need a permit for that.
So we have new uses in here. And then it references the section where you can find more information about it. And then there's footnotes to the table. And the accessory use table, we didn't have this before. So this is like if you have a home-based business or home office, farm stand, bed and breakfast type of thing.
The attorney was really wanted us to list all the accessory uses. So there's a lot of things that we had to, change. These are part of those 300 changes is like adding things to accessory use and in a lot of definitions.
Yeah. So, but we'll be able to hand this out to people that come in with questions. It's a couple sheets as opposed to digging through to see where is that allowed, where's that not allowed.
So 4.3.
Agriculture and farming.
Rich is on this and he's not prepared to talk anything, but really this section really came out of this section and the next one, animal related facilities, 3.4. All things that Rich has to deal with a lot with zoning. We don't think there's a lot of farming things, but there's people want to do small farms, or they want to urban farms, and they want to, have a couple of chickens, and they, we have very short regulations about them. This is completely rehashed,
Yeah.
redone. Rich, this was a lot of written by Rich, and so he's going to be enforcing it. So we're kind of going with the flow and allowing him to feel comfortable with what he wants to regulate here, how it's done. This again, the 4.4 is the animals. Just kind of talks about how many animals
You can have, what type, where, setbacks.
I'm assuming it's pretty consistent, similar sized towns.
It is, we've already talked to the, was it Yukon Ag? I think it was Yukon Ag. They called us, they were like, oh, someone complained they couldn't have some animals. So they were like, well, can we look at your regs? And as a courtesy, we worked with a lot of their things that they recommended. But we might send it to them, but it's not required to send it to them for animals. But, people, they want to make sure that farming is allowed. We're not a farming by right community. You have to adopt that. The council would have to adopt that, and they haven't. And there is one farm in the community, which is a geese farm that Rich has had a lot of enforcement issues, not with them, with the neighbors who keep complaining about it. So it is a commercially allowed farm. So now this has more clarification for the people who are complaining about that farm.
Another section that we updated is controlled sales and services, which mainly deals with alcohol and cannabis. Just kind of updated that and cleaned it up to reflect the changes from a few years back.
Yeah, so it's
They
really
treat
didn't
it the
change
same.
anything. It's just done neater and it's kept together.
Yeah.
And then 4.8.
Drop-off boxes, that donation drop-off boxes, that's a new section because we really want to regulate where these are and what because they kind of get junky. People just drop stuff off. So going forward, they're only going to be allowed as an accessory to a legally conforming house of worship, so in a church. So they won't be allowed in.
So you have a convenient store, and you're like, hey, I can get an extra $100 a month by putting it here. We don't want them everywhere. Churches get it, they use it for their money and things like that, but we don't
Because
want it
they
everywhere.
tend to police them.
Yes.
How does that fit in with non-conformity?
They're there.
If they're there, they're there.
Yeah, but if we find a new one, they'll be out of there.
Yeah.
Or if somebody leaves, we can probably push it because no one's gonna leave it on the site, so we can get it out of it. Because I think there was one in the flood zone down where the old what's his name was the frickin' Basil. I think there was even one on that lot. So there's no one there now, so that could go. It's either there or across the street, but in the front
And
area.
I think across the street.
Across the street, I think there was one.
So now we just want to clean that up because they become places of life. They really are. Farm brewery, cidery and wineries, 410.
Yeah, so we added, this is a largely expanded section that allows for these uses. In the last zoning reg, there was an agriculture business overlay district that was also not fully part of the regulations. So
It was drawn on the map and there was no
but it
real
wasn't in the
regulations.
text, so it's not in both. It doesn't work. It doesn't exist.
And it was really just one bubble, and it was like, and so you're really saying, okay, only those few people
Yeah.
can do this in this area. So it just gives some standards that it could go in other places. There's still a lot of criteria for it.
It's a
but-
special permit use, so it would come to the commission and you have a lot of checks and balances that need to be met. If they're gonna have any sort of entertainment, they have to do a sound study and present it to you, and like number of events per year, and then
Yeah.
you need traffic control.
You could incorporate food also sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then you can jump down to 415. So the next things in between, a lot of things like I'm skipping over, home-based businesses really didn't change, hospitals didn't change, hotels and inns.
Yeah.
So, but this one is on mixed use, 415.
Yeah, so this has some changes really that reflect what we've been doing in practice through variances now. Downtown, when they're required to have more commercial or equal commercial to residential, now we're saying it needs to be on the first floor in front of the street. But in the back of first floors, you could have accessible apartments there and apartments upstairs.
And they're getting those now, like Dan said, like in Reed and Hughes on the first floor, they're in the back half of that build, there's first floor apartments. So we're making them jump through hoops right now to get it and prove a hardship when we're just gonna allow it. But we do want to, like I said, the forward facing of the road, we don't want that to be apartments. The statutes, they were pushing that in the last housing bill that didn't pass.
Yeah.
And that was one of the reasons we were against it, because you will lose all your commercial space to have a residential on the first floor. You'll lose that. So at least we want the forward facing part of the windows, and it doesn't have to be very deep, but you need to be able to have a commercial space in that area.
Do we use renting out now?
Right down the first floor, you mean?
At all?
Yeah, I
I
think,
think most of the apartments are,
Yeah.
have leases.
And they have a-
long-term lease for the commercial tenant.
Yeah. and it's a food service, which will be good.
So multifamily dwellings, we have some changes here in terms of density allowed, dwellings per lot area. We are allowing twice as many in terms of square footage in the multifamily zone, because the state has a big push for housing.
How's that new housing bill affect any of this?
Well, we're still reviewing that, and it's not fully, we may have to come back in a few months and update a few things.
But they set an effective date of January 1st or
Which
something,
is-
and even our attorney said there's every community in the state would be right now in the middle of Christmas time, changing their regs to make it work. And so it's not really, there's no way that anyone's gonna have their regs updated. We think we're compliant on most things now with the way our regs are, but we really need to go with fine tooth
I thought
comb.
maybe the only thing that might be affected would be the off-street parking issue.
And we're gonna get
We
to
have a
that.
note for that too, because that is still kind of up in the air, how it affects the parking.
Yeah, I don't recall exactly what I heard about the new bill.
Mhm.
We reduced usable recreation area, kind of felt that our existing regs were a little overboard for that, because a lot of amenities are inside buildings now.
Mhm.
or
And also
if there's a
walking
park near-
distance.
Within walking distance.
And again, that loses developable area if you're saying they need so much, landscaping outside or rec area. When like I said, you can go to Howard T. Brown Park or something like that, so we
Yeah.
decided that.
Another mention here about ADA accessible units on the first floor in Chelsea Central.
Now you go to 5, we're gonna have to reuse of historic structures. Regan, you'll like this. Like, there's a couple of them, I think, that you'll like for historic things.
I'll let you.
Woohoo!
This section really is talking about, that you can potentially do other uses in historic, buildings. And they're not necessarily housing, but you can potentially do some really cool, here's some permitted use of the antique shops, bed and breakfast, bookstores, galleries. Because we see that if people can't, get something there, these expensive, big, large homes that are on the National Register and stuff, they just want to make them into multifamily, split them apart and do things. And we want to save some of the ones, like, for example, would be, something by, NFA and the multi-millionaire triangle and those kind of things, or on the Norwich Town Green, if they're in a residential zone, to be able to do some certain things there. If you can meet the criteria. Again, it's strict criteria, but we want to give some flexibility so some cool things can happen.
Yeah, it's really to keep them looking like a home.
Yeah.
But allow for.
And the parking is very strict on these and that kind of things too, so.
Conservation, residential development is the same.
Access driveway is the next one, 6.2. So that section, of 5 just has that special development types in that.
So access driveways and shared driveways. This is really about there's a separate section on access management, but we did change that if the Wetlands Commission feels that shared driveways for residential developments would be beneficial to protect wetlands. As right now, we don't allow for shared driveways in the city, but we changed the language. So if the Wetlands Commission says these two houses should share a driveway in order to protect a wetlands body, then the CCP can approve that as part of the subdivision approval.
Or some kind of development, even if it's not a subdivision, if it was like some kind of commercial development too.
Well, we
Yeah.
already did allow for shared driveways.
Flag lots.
Yeah,
Yes,
and then
The
we have
next
a
one's
whole new
earth.
section on earth alterations that the city engineer helped me put together.
we did not have any at all. The city had a ordinance about earth alterations that Rich would try to interpret and try to mix that into it. So this kind of is in the zoning regulations that they have to
Yeah,
apply to
a
this.
lot more fleshed out than what we.
And we don't
previously
really have any gravel excavations that are going on here, but it doesn't mean we won't have at some point someone coming in and wanting to do a large excavation for future use down the road. And then we want to make them to show us how they're laying that out so that we know in the future it's gonna be
Yeah.
something usable.
Before you move on, I had thought it would be going through the residential part. I thought you might get to it. You might have skipped over and I might have missed it. Changes for residential things like Airbnb, ADUs, were there changes or was that addressed in this? Where we
No,
had
well,
issues in the
Airbnb
past?
Airbnbs are not being addressed in the zoning regulations. That's
Okay.
something that needs to be an ordinance. It doesn't need to be. We feel strongly that it
It
is an
should be,
ordinance
yeah.
because it's more than just zoning. If you have to comply with zoning, but it would be, there's a licensing procedure, there's inspections that are required, there's so much more. We do not have the capability, and our zoning enforcement officer does not have the capability to do all that. We
Okay.
cannot take that on, and whatever's in the zoning regulations, you're responsible for enforcing.
Yeah.
So we are not capable of enforcing Airbnbs. So
Okay.
right now, the hotel standard is still the same thing. You would not be permitted Airbnbs. The council is aware of this. We brought up to them many times, and now that, there's a new council coming in, and I think it'll be falling onto their laps to decide how they want to address that.
Okay.
So we're not going to discuss in the zoning regulations where Airbnbs might be permitted?
No. It was in the ordinance, the draft ordinance of where they wanted to be. And there was a lot of discussion back and forth on that at the time even, because the mayor really, the current mayor really wanted it to be downtown to really have, they'd be downtown and people would use the shops. But that's not necessarily where Airbnbs want to be. A lot of times people want to have it in a private home that's off the street and not be, and there was some that turned out to be event venues that were
Yeah.
problems in the city, and we
Yeah.
had those. So it was a lot of chasing down those. One particular property owner owned multiple large properties that they were using for wedding venues and things. So we just feel that we do not have the ability to enforce that in our office. It also kicks in some fire codes, some building codes, all these different codes that in the licensing of it and the inspections and the renewals.
Yeah,
And
it's
so
larger than.
It's
zoning.
really like you go in, I'm trying to use an example of like you get your business license from the clerk's office or you get something from, it's a licensing thing and it's not really a zoning permit thing. It would involve zoning at some point, but right now we did not tackle that.
Is there anything on the table with the?
We haven't met with the newly elected mayor yet, and he wants to meet with us soon. So, but yeah, that is not in here. And I would take the same stance though with him and with the council that is not something that we feel that we have the capability to enforce without a lot of teamwork and a lot of staff.
Money.
Yeah, money,
Yeah.
staff, and what we do in zoning is you get a permit for something, like you said, it runs with the land existing non-conforming. Well, that's not how it works with Airbnb, because if you don't follow these rules, we have to revoke it, or you don't do that kind of thing. It's really a permit, it's really a licensing.
It's kind of like daycare.
Yeah, it needs an agency that would be take care of that. And there is outsourcing it to agencies, to companies, private companies to do it. But our current attorney doesn't feel that, but Mike Driscoll, that it's allowed in Connecticut to outsource it. Because if the city wanted to do it and they said, we're gonna adopt this ordinance and it's gonna be taken care of by this company who's going to do everything involved with it, then we don't care, go for it, the city should do it, but if it means that we have to yearly create some new type of licensing and stuff, we just don't have the capabilities.
Council would have to fund it.
So they'll have to discuss that. If they want it, I don't know. I'm gonna be honest with you. I think that they're a little bit falling out of favor. They're not as popular anymore that I'm reading online about.
Most of the issues we had were with larger
Yeah.
venue.
Yeah.
Not
That
the-
one.
Yeah.
Entity. Yeah.
Yeah, so,
But I didn't know this, you had addressed sort of that issue here and how other towns were addressing.
other
it.
towns are not necessarily putting it in their zoning regs. I know that, was it Preston though did recently? They did.
Yeah.
They did. So, but again, it's really what extent do you want to do it and where do we want to have it in the city? So we could talk about it. It needs a lot more discussion than that really wasn't in the POCD so much to discuss that, so we're really kind of stayed away from it.
The soil erosion and sediment control is another new section that's kind of similar to the earth alterations.
We did have ENS control, obviously, in
Yeah.
our regulations, but this
But
is
it's been
much more
reviewed
beefed
and
up.
Updated by the city engineer.
And the
Same
same,
thing with stormwater.
there was no stormwater management, anything, and we get complaints about stormwater and things, and you know, the neighbors' stormwater stuff. So he really worked on that as well.
Yeah.
Historic preservation is next. That's number 6-7. So historic preservation is a little unique, because it's different from the adaptive reuse kind of thing. It's basically saying that, well, let me give you a scenario. If you buy a house and it's a National Register house, unless you make it so that it's no longer eligible on the National Register, there's no one that can prevent you from basically siding that 1700s house with aluminum siding or make, you know, so because it's not in a local historic district. In the local historic district, they have guidelines for that. But we have so many national historic districts, I think there's 9 of them, to regulate those by a board and the commission, and having so many applications would not make sense. So what this does, it regulates those exteriors and basically says that it applies to buildings that are on the National Register and State Register and the Norwich Historic Survey, which was a survey done in the 1970s. And it basically allows that they need to be consistent with the modifications of the exterior of these homes to keep their historic integrity. So that's really what it's about, you know, so making sure that, you know, people can buy these, and they're buying them, that it doesn't, we're having a lot of flipping happening in the city, and they're buying these cheaper old houses that are, a lot of them are on the National Register, and we can't control the interior with this. There's other elements to do that. People can get what's historic easement from the Preservation Connecticut, but we're not trying to control people do inside, but the exterior, they should maintain that look, because that's part of the character of Norwich. We have all these periods of history that we want to protect. So this will do that. But just tonight I was showing Dan, we caught one that the Historical Society caught and told us, and it was on the National Register. And we were able to get them to stop the vinyl siding in 2 specific, and to do the clapboard back and do that. And they were willing to do that, but they didn't know that. So this way it was like our building officials know, because zoning will have to look at that for those, you know, changes. And we just think it's a way to do some basic preservation.
I think there ought to be a way of notifying any potential buyers that they're on the register or something.
Well, the thing is, the real estate agents should also be listing it. If you look at some of these properties, but they say they're on their National Register, but they don't give them any information about, well, you should not, you know, talk to the Historical Society and get some guidance, or because people who buy them sometimes are very responsible, and they buy them because of their history, and they buy them and they love them and want to restore them. Other ones are because they're really cheap and they want to flip them, and they've just
ship boxes that need to be fixed.
yeah. But they, to some extent, that they ruin the historic integrity. And I just showed Dan a picture of one that was an old fireplace, and it's this early 1700s house. If you could see what they did inside this house, and again, we would not be regulating the inside, but it's horrific what they did to this inside of this house. It's like horrible. And, you know, just, it's shameful, because I know what it looked like.
See, I have a real fundamental philosophical problem with that kind of stuff myself, because when you get somebody who's willing to take over one of these old crappy houses and fix it up, they're spending money on it, and we're telling them, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that.
It's only the exterior, though. We're not controlling the interior, but
Yeah, but even the exterior sometimes, you know, it makes a huge difference. If I've got a budget of $20,000 as opposed to $50,000 to put clapboard or vinyl siding on.
But it prevents the person that's the flipper. And that's really what we're finding. And I think, like I said, Regan's on this call. Regan is one of the people that bring up these to our attention all the time. it's not the person who's buying it to live there because they know that they want it to look a certain way. And they usually are bought it because of historic purposes and they want to find out the history of it. We get those phone calls all the time of what's the history of it? It's the flippers, they don't care.
Well, the flippers, I know a lot of flippers and some of them do, but what I'm saying is there's people who are not of means who want to buy an old house but can't afford to upgrade it to the historic standards.
Well, we're not asking them to meet to the architectural, we're not meeting the standards of the national standards. We're just saying that it can't, they need to, and if you look at the language there,
I can't read.
that change, I'll read it. Dan, can you read it actually? It's
All
right.
efforts should be made to use like materials and maintain unique features so as to preserve the appearance of the building remains in harmony with the surrounding neighborhood.
So it's
Exterior
really, it's
detail
very
should be
basic,
maintained.
but they can't, like, again, we don't, if you're in Norwich Town and you're on the green, we don't want someone to rip it, well, that's not a good example, because they're in the local.
The local historic district.
But Regan, for an example of the one that's on Harmon Road.
Yeah, that's in the local historic district too. Yeah,
And, but yeah, so that one you were able to stop because of that, but there's,
yeah.
some of these are on national, but like, let's talk about even on the any of the areas that are not, we only have 2 local historic districts. The local historic district is right here on Broadway going up towards, the
Right,
little
Broadway.
plains.
Little Plain, yeah, by
And
St.
there's-
Pat's.
And then there's the Norwich Town, but we have all these properties that are in Laurel Hill and just, some of these mansions and things that, if they can make them at least look nice, keep the features, because we've seen them take, porches off and take windows out and just make a box, and it ruins it for all the rest of that full architecture.
To address something Frank said, I just want to quickly chime in. The other hat I wear as chairman of the Historic District Commission is what I often do for people who come in with applications and say that there's a financial hardship. There are tax credit opportunities through the State Historic Preservation Office that I refer people to, and there are a couple residents who have taken advantage of it. And it's a great program that I always refer people to because it's an ability to do the work historically accurate, and then you get money back from the state afterwards. So I want to just throw that out there, Frank, to assuage some of your fears about people coming in and having financial hardship. There are different opportunities through the State Historic Preservation Office to help that.
Yeah, I understand that too, Regan. I have a real concern about affordability as opposed to, looking at things, like eye candy.
Yeah,
To me, a house needs to be, if somebody's buying a house and they're, say young and they're 2-income families and they work hard and they can't necessarily afford to do all these upgrades to the exterior of the house, but they can keep the house up and maintain it. To me, that can be a drawback. A lot of these old properties are affordable because they haven't been kept up. And somebody wants to buy them to put a family in, and then they get put off because they got to put in all this extra money.
I don't know. I'm going to disagree. I think the historic fabric of the city is too important to let someone on the Bean Hill Green put vinyl siding up on one of the 1700s houses that Benedict Arnold's mother lived in or something. That's how I feel. I feel really.
Yeah, I totally disagree.
So, but philosophical, but our attorney it's an allowed thing. So we're going with that. So, because people call all the time and say about their neighbors are doing something and we have no teeth right now. So it's giving a little teeth.
Oh, it's not going to get my vote. Let's say that.
Moving on, the next section I did a lot of work on is the landscaping section. We didn't have much previously, so this talks about landscaping for multifamily buildings, commercial buildings, industrial areas, land development buildings.
And things we always ask for is like the native and to avoid invasive species. We
Yeah.
don't ask for that, so it's in the regs now.
Size of new trees required,
Yeah.
Screening, fencing, planting, front landscape areas, street trees, and there's different requirements depending on the district. Single family homes and up to 4-unit multifamily homes are exempt from those requirements. And then parking lot landscaping, some updates there. Buffer areas, same thing. We're gonna have 3 options going
So maybe
forward,
explain
depending
what
on
buffers are.
the approval path. So if you're gonna build, you have a commercial lot that is adjacent to a residential zone. Now, depending on how it's approved, either through the ZEO or through you guys, there's gonna be 3 options. Like you can do plantings, or you can do a berm or a wall with plantings if you want to reduce the area, or if it's a heavily wooded area between the two, you can leave X amount of feet of heavily wooded area. So there's just options moving forward, depending on the situation. And then another huge issue we've been having is trash and recycling,
Yeah.
especially in the more dense areas.
And especially that development is happening downtown.
Yeah.
There is no room between the buildings, so how are they dealing with their trash? And then they're automatically think they're going to get, 40 apartments and they need 80 trash cans,
Yeah.
if 40 trash and 40 recycling.
Yeah.
No, they've got to figure out a better way. So the compactor issues and how the frequency, they've got to come up with a
Yeah.
trash plan and work with the trash companies to deal with it. Because we just can't continue to have the garbage and trash cans, because they are themselves are of light, those trash cans.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That I don't disagree with
Yeah.
at all.
And then we have updated and expanding regulations on the screening of trash and mechanical areas, planting around ground mounted mechanical equipment or dumpsters or recycling and whatnot.
Those are off-street parking.
And then off-street parking,
Again, we need to look a little bit closer at this with the new statutes, but we
Yeah.
think we're good because primarily downtown, we've always had that there's no requirement for additional parking, but we all know that people are gonna live in an apartment, they're gonna have a car. So it's,
Yeah.
there's always that balance of, in the statutes, okay, don't allow for parking. Well, you don't require parking, but people still have cars and we're not a city that like Boston that has the T and transportation that people don't need cars. So there's always that balance. And so that's a difficult thing, but we think we've adjusted it better than what it's been in the past.
Yep, so we have an updated parking table that has a lot more uses in it and minimum and maximum parking. So we're trying to avoid the Walmart parking lot that has 700 spaces that 150 are used, and then it's just a waste.
And they like to have the 700 because they want to plan for their biggest
Yeah.
day, but that's.
Yeah,
only
but
a few
it
days.
just doesn't happen.
No,
It's all online and it's a waste of asphalt and there's stormwater implications. So it's a big change, a big update. We changed the size of parking spaces and how they're laid out.
yes, because ours didn't really make sense. We always had that 9 by 20, no, 10 by 20, no, 9 by 20 or 10 by 18, which the standard is 9 by 18. So it's always been one of those tricky things for developers. So we just went with the standard of what people are, have been doing. And the angled parking that we had was a weird angle. So our engineering division really helped with that.
Yeah.
Public Works on that. One other thing too, in that parking section, I believe that we had in there, at least I think, was that if it was a parking use that we didn't have at our table, that there is some standards that they can look at. Do we still do that guidance to refer
Or
them?
you can request of an applicant to provide you with a study that shows how much parking they need, so they're not overbuilding parking. Like a good example is a data center. We get a data center and it's a huge building, but only 4 people work in there. They don't need a parking lot that would
For
have
200 people,
20,000 square feet type of thing.
Yeah, and that's how it's really coming. A lot of people work from home now and those kind of things. The data centers are just a few people working on the computers, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a bunch of,
Do you determine your parking requirements by the size of the building or the
It
use of the
used to
building?
be, now it's use. It's the use of the building.
What if the use of the building changes?
So there's always in there's a build out of,
thing for deferred parking. So they have to show that they can provide more parking if they need to in the future.
so like a reserved area for that. And it has to be a reserved area. So say it's not very big reserved area, well, then they need to plan to have potentially a garage,
Yeah, for,
vertical parking. So if, like you said, a manufacturer comes in
Yeah, I'm
and
just
doesn't
thinking,
have much.
paint yourself into a corner and that, for the next.
No,
Yeah.
we thought about it.
there's a whole new section on bike parking and where it's required and long-term, short-term spaces and where it needs to be located. We're addressing parking in front yards.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be allowed anymore. And trying to help Rich with people that are trying to pave over their front yards for
Yes.
parking.
And that's also an issue
You don't
again with,
park in a driveway that's approved and where it's supposed to be.
and that's it. So nowhere else. You can't create more parking to have in front of your house. You have your driveway access you can park
Yeah.
on. But like Rich gets requests all the time for just a pad in front of their house. So they already have the driveway, they want another pad or another pad, and it's like, it's just asphalt pads in front of
Had the
people's house.
park or put the RV there or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not doing it.
Yeah, and it
So
helps the
we're-
city with stormwater requirements.
Yes.
Landscaping of parking again, this is that deferred parking that we were just talking about.
After parking is lighting.
Off-street parking and driveway standards. We have a new section that's revised on outdoor lighting that,
It was so, our other section was so complicated.
yeah,
It-
this still is too,
Yeah, it's,
but
lighting
it's
is
way
a-
less complicated. And we had this page that was in the end of the regulations that talked about
Zones.
zones and this. and
lighting
that.
zones that we couldn't even figure out what
Yeah.
it was, like
So this is more in line with. the
dark skies,
Dark sky requirements.
which is in our P O C D to look at
Yeah.
dark sky requirements. So that's, we're doing that.
Which is what you normally talk about with the full cutoff lighting and
Yeah.
everyone has to do a lighting plan, so it doesn't bleed to other properties, that type of thing.
Pedestrian walks.
We still have this graphic, pedestrian walks. The P O C D talks about focusing on sidewalks and walkability, so we're adding new things that other than residential developments of 4 units or less, sidewalks will be required unless staff recommends if you're doing some development that is miles from another sidewalk and it's never going to be a sidewalked area, then
And that's kind of like what we have in our subdivision regs, you know, on subdivision regs, if you're doing a subdivision, it's way out in the boonies, we're not having, but this is now sidewalks that are in denser areas that
yeah,
are just,
so it's near schools or things that people need to be able to walk to easily.
you know, so.
And then, you know, if they're redeveloping a site, they may have to rehabilitate the sidewalks that are existing if they're in terrible shape, kind of thing.
And that was a recommendation of our
Yeah.
public works then.
Huge,
Most sidewalks in the city are in terrible shape.
Yeah.
So it gives us an opportunity when a new developer comes in to say, fix it, you know?
we've got 8 minutes, huge updates to signs. That was a big push through the P O C D and just conversations with stakeholders and the public. Talk about prohibited signs,
Dan's spent a
temporary
lot of time on this.
signs, design guidelines, standards, and then it breaks down what's permitted in residential districts, what's in commercial districts, how big they can be, how they can be lit, where they can be located, how many per lot.
One thing that we did take out of the signs is we are not regulating murals. And that was always, murals were regulated downtown
Yeah.
by the director of planning, that I needed to sign off on murals. And we're not talking about signs, we're talking about murals, artistic murals. That's very arbitrary. It's not for us to decide what is art or not art, so we have no standards. So if anyone wants to regulate murals, it has to be someone else besides us on private property.
So this will really help Rich, like he can say, these are the signs you're allowed to have on your lot. And this is how big they can be and where they can be. We
Yeah.
can't regulate what is on it per se, but where it's located.
Do you know issues that people who signs are gonna be grandfathered in?
They
or-
all, yeah,
They all
become non-conforming.
Yeah.
Just like right now
If
in,
you go to change it, you gotta conform.
so, no, not necessarily. So like
You can
in,
restore what's there.
kind of, so like for an
As
example,
much as I'd like.
Dan would love every sign to be ripped down and start over. See, this is,
I'm assuming you have some examples where you.
but I can give you an example, like in Regan, I talked about this recently. There is a business that went in an existing property and it had an existing box sign. And it's in the Norwich area, which is in the historic district and then local historic, but if the box is there and the sign is there and they're just changing the face, if they said we're taking it down and they don't want that sign, now we can regulate what they can put there. But as long as that box is still there,
Yep.
they're going to be allowed to do that. And it's not anything locally that we're designing. This is literally like state and federal law
Yeah.
regarding.
There's a lot of First
Right.
Amendment issues. with
Yes,
signs.
signs are very tricky. One thing in signs of billboards, do you want to talk about a little bit about that? We don't,
No.
well,
No.
yes, we need to talk about it. So we are at the request of our community partners, Norwich Community Development Corporation, and the city manager, and they've asked us to put in allowance for billboards, which we don't have billboards. And there's very strict, we do have some in the city, but those are existing non-conforming.
Been there forever, you know.
There forever. This would be allowed for new billboard, but it's very, very stringent requirements, and they're really only allowed along the federal highways, which would be 395. And they're only allowed in certain zones, and the standards to get them from the DOT are very hard to get, but they can ask for waivers to them. So it allows them to apply for it, but they still have to do all their homework to get those.
Oh, there's
more.
plenty of them already in the city.
Yeah, but this is
That
these
exist.
are like, yeah, they're existing.
This would
These
be
would be a new
Yeah.
ones, and those, you know. So that was included in at the request of other people. Again, we're working with stakeholders, so timber, the
Timber
next,
harvest,
yep.
lot clearing and access management, access management is something like along a West Main Street, we're trying to limit the number of curb cuts, have shared driveways and to be able to get from one parking lot to the next without going back on the street type of thing.
Mhm.
And then
Goes all the way
just
down
like back
application.
of the house for applications, we drastically reduced the amount of paper that we require. Some
Because the-
cases from 15 copies down to 4.
When they were not necessarily for
Yeah.
the subdivision, because we're not the sub, but like in like a site plan, a big application, you know, the blueprints are this thick and they're bringing 15 sets, the trees that are being cut, and also we don't need them because we're not giving them your own sets to all of you. It's just too much. So we figured about 4 is good, and then we can get some smaller 11 by 17. And they've been, they have to submit everything digitally to us now anyways.
Yeah.
So we have those digital copies and we can print from them. So we just feel like it's just so much
Yeah.
smoother not having to do that.
That's pretty much it. I would,
I want to talk one more thing about the city council for applications for zoning, text and map amendments. Our fee has been $300. The city's fee is $300 for those. It costs way more than that just to do the advertising. Then they have to update the
You
Unicode
mean if
system
somebody's applying,
for a zone change or a text amendment for the council. It was $300 forever. It is now going to be $1,000 because the cost of the legal notice that need to go in for that and to update Unicode afterwards is so exorbitant. So
it
it's
still
probably,
doesn't even cover.
it's not even gonna cover, but at least it's 3 times what it is now, you know.
I'm assuming that's consistent with local towns. area
We
towns,
went,
so-
okay, we.
Did you-
Did you do a market
We've
research
done
kind of thing?
research. We
Okay.
did research on everything.
Researched other special act communities that involved the city council. And that
Wonderful.
is in the middle, the lower to middle range.
Some were like 2,000.
1,500 plus they pay the publication fee, plus they pay a fee per acre that's
Per-
gonna be rezoned.
Yeah, there's a
It could
lot of
be-
weird.
Yeah, you don't wanna do it in Stanford, I'll tell you that.
Okay.
So anyway, so
But I
we,
think the other biggest thing that we didn't really touch on is we eliminated waivers.
yes,
Will
and
not have waivers.
And that's really, the statutes changed a few years ago, and we've been sort of massaging it because our regs weren't changed as to get rid of waivers, because what we do is you can give, I'm gonna use the word waivers loosely. You can give waivers by, if you have criteria and say, in these instances, you shall not need to require this wide of a buffer, and you give those criteria. But instead it was, the commission has the right to waive that and make it, but there was no standards really of when, you know, how you could waive it. So the statutes changed a few years ago and said you can't issue waivers anymore. Might have been statutes or it might have been also from a court
for
case.
anything,
Yes, waivers for zoning. You cannot issue waivers in zoning.
for like
So
a
what,
new survey on properties. that
no,
was
so what we've
surveyed
done is
before.
done that other, the flip side of it. We, a site plan is not required when blah, blah, blah. So it's like
Okay.
we're
It's
dealing with
taken
it.
care of ahead of time.
ahead of
It's not
You
a
addressed it up
commission.
front. Okay.
Yes,
Issue.
yes. So we can say, you don't need to submit that unless it's determined that you're doing this.
There'll be a need for fewer waivers.
Yeah, so there is no waivers. You will not have waivers. In subdivision, you can still have waivers, but in zoning, you cannot have waivers. Because it's a way I guess there was a court case that started with it and it said that you were doing, when commissions were giving waivers, they were doing the work of the zoning board of appeals. They were basically giving variances. So they said,
Happens all the time.
yeah, yeah. So this way it falls into the jurisdiction of who it's supposed to, but we just flipped the wording and made it work out. So, that's
And
kind of,
6:30.
that's
not bad.
it. We'll see if anybody has any comments besides Frank's. We know Frank's doesn't like the siding, the historic building. Rita loves it.
I love it. I'm excited.
So.
All right,
I just have a quick question.
no questions.
I know you had said that murals are coming out of the jurisdiction of your office. Where would that review be held now? Is it NCDC or are we not sure?
Not sure.
Not
And
sure.
so
We have opinions on that, but.
Yeah.
Sure.
But honest with you, it's very difficult to regulate, it kind of like
Free
signage.
speech,
It's
yeah.
free speech, it's art, and it's a private property. So if it's
Yeah.
municipal property, it's much easier to regulate. You have a committee and we already have a public works capital improvement committee that looks at monument stuff, but on a private property, who am I to say that your art is good or bad, or at least downtown? So it's not, if they want to regulate it, they've got to do it by some other means to that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
If they're painting the side of a building and it's going to be signage and we can tell that, then they have to follow the signage regulations. They have a certain amount of square footage. So, as a matter of fact, I could just sidebar real quick. In New London, there was a sign somebody painted recently and they were like, oh, it's a beautiful artwork and it's covered with plastic now. The city made them cover it. And they were like, well, show this artwork. Well, it was a sign for the business. It was, that the Muddy Waters or whatever. It was a brand new sign and they were blocking off the passageway. And it was a nice sign. The guys did beautiful work, but it's a sign. It's not a mural. So the city probably said you're over your amount of signage, plus you're blocking a sidewalk with this big thing. So anyway, so that's
I was just curious. Yeah, no worries.
a conversation with the new council members and mayor and stuff about things. Any other?
How do we get a copy of these new changes?
They'll be available next Monday evening.
Next Monday? Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, because when we're gonna file the clerk's office, that's when they kind of officially filed and we have to give them in thumb drives to them and we have to give them in the physical copies. So we're gonna upload it,
It'll
probably.
be on the planning department's webpage.
Yeah, we'll send you a link to where you can
Yeah.
look at it. We're not gonna be printing out copies of it because it's too expensive to do that and everybody would want one, but I mean, if the chairman really wants us to do that for the members, we could probably do it, but we don't want to do it for everybody. But it's really, again, the council has the jurisdiction over the zoning regulations.
No, we'll talk about it later. I like a hard copy myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you want, do you want the commission?
Of the draft or the final?
The final. I don't care about the draft.
No, not now. So after the 8th, you mean when it's completely
when
done and
oh, yeah.
adopted?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, when it's
I don't care
adopted.
about the draft.
Okay.
I can look at that on-
Okay, so yeah, at the end, we can make hard copies for the commission members, so you have them at meetings with you if you want.
Sure.
But yeah, so Rich, I just want to ask Rich if you had any questions with what we presented. Rich has done some review of the things going on, but we've been moving faster than he can keep up with us too, because he's busy as a CEO.
Yeah, no, I think you pretty much, hit everything. It's pretty well covered. I mean, obviously it's more comprehensive than what you could do in an hour, but I
Yeah,
think it was good.
and just so you know, when we started with our consultant, we literally went through Rich had a list of all the things he wanted to see in the regs and we needed fixed. Dan did and myself, and we submitted all them. And we pretty much touched, I think, Rich, on everything that you wanted addressed.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the reality is, and, we all deal in reality. The reality is, once they're adopted, we're going to be living this world of the new regulations, and we're going to come up with stuff that we're going to say, well, we should have done this or we should have changed that. But it's so intensive. And with Dan doing the majority of everything himself on it, and me being extremely busy with permits and you being extremely busy with other things, you're just, you know, can't figure it all out at one time.
Which actually makes me really quickly touch on something that Rich said. So we do have another new zone, which is the Norwich State Hospitals. But we are not, it's not gonna be shown on the map yet. We have a placeholder in the regulations, a reserve spot, because we have a planning grant right now, $250,000 that we're trying to finalize the legal process with the state, so we can officially get our RFQ out for planning help. And we need a market analysis and planning studies done to determine what the highest and best uses should be that are cohesive with what's happening in Preston side of the Norwich State Hospital. So it's a planning study that's going to take probably 9 months, I would imagine, to do. So we have a holding spot for it, but we have that in our table, the Norwich State Hospital zone. Right now, it's in the table, right? Or it's not the table. And then, but right now it's still under the zone that it's in. So, which is the PDD, and it's still PDD. So, but, so that's what, like Rich was saying, there's some things that are, we know are coming. And we'll have to go back to the drawing board with that. So if there's anything that comes up that we find out is a mess up, or we don't like how it's working, like if we adopt that portion that you say is a problem you don't like, and we find out that it is a problem for people investing because of this, those kind of things, then maybe we can change it,
That's why we have the ability to amend things.
Yes. But I think we should try something new.
All right,
Thank you all on this rainy night.
we're good, though. We can have a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
A motion to adjourn from Dean. Do we have a second?
Second by
I'll
Dan.
second.
Okay, so we got a second. All in favor?
Who was the second from?
I mean,
Ella?
Dennis.
Dennis?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thanks, everybody, for coming. Welcome to our